everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in to yet another fantastic episode of You Didn't Get the Memo. I'm your host, Gloria Bailey Ray. And as always, we are bringing it tonight. Back by popular demand, we've got Dr. Ron C. Osborne-Williams, who we're going to be delving into relationships. So look, you want to grab your family, your loved one, whomever, dial up that number and get them tuned in. You Didn't Get the Memo, as always, is about providing you, the viewer, with relevant, factual, mainstream information to help you be informed and to make informed decisions. As a quick reminder, if you have questions for Dr. Osborne, place it in the comment section. We'll do our very best to get back to you or respond to you. All right. Now, our show today is actually being brought to you by Delane's Natural Nails. Relationships, the unresolved issues, or another way to look at it is dealing with the inevitable, because it's bound to come up if you don't deal with it. It has been said that anything unresolved within our energy field will keep manifesting itself in our physical, our mental, our emotional, and spiritual life until we heal it. It's no escaping it. At the same time, if you just really think about it, an unresolved issue is anything that disturbs your peace. And I think we all can agree. We don't want to live our lives like that. So I want to bring and welcome back to the show by popular demand, Dr. Ron. Welcome. I'm so glad that you are here. And I'm looking forward to this even being more dynamic than the last time that we had you on the show months ago. So welcome.
Thank you for having me back. I'm so glad that I could come back here and spend some time with you today.
Yes, yes. Well, I'm going to just jump right in. Let's start off by saying, or a question to you, or what are some of the emotional effects of unresolved issues in a relationship? And let's start with, first of all, your own mistakes, and then your partner's mistakes, because you know the effects are far reaching, and they really have an impact on everything else that you do or other people that you interface with, or at least that's in my humble opinion.
Right.
So what say you?
Well, one of the things that you really look at is when we're getting into relationships. A lot of times we're getting into relationships not based on us, but based on our feelings, our attraction to someone else. And what we're beginning to find out is, and after we're in this relationship, then we start thinking about how this relationship is affecting us. You see it very often in a relationship. I mean, let's take a current situation today that was over social media. The baby and his is it the baby or is it the baby? I don't know which one. One of these entertainers and his baby. And he has a baby with a young lady, and he was kicking her out of his house in the middle of the night. And there has now been this whole controversy between the two camps of the people about the idea that he's saying that she wasn't really his fully woman, she was a side woman, and these kinds of things. And when you put that in play, 2 months ago, you could see them in a place that it looked like they could not get enough of each other. They could not keep their hands off of one another. And now today, yesterday, he is kicking her out of his house, not kicking her out with his 2-month-old baby out of his house, not wanting anything to do with her. And that's something you think about when we're out evaluating and looking at relationships and how those relationships are established. It's not about how relationships are going; it's how we establish them.
Right. Ooh, that's some deep words right there. How we establish them, because when you think about previous relationship issues, right, that they roll up into what you're currently dealing with, childhood issues, for instance, whether it's abandonment, whether it's the emotional, the physical. When we think about all of those things, they too also play a part in our lives, especially when we haven't dealt with it.
Well, the biggest part that you really described there that plays in is our learned behaviors about relationships. When we look at the when you really what I do a lot of times when I'm doing therapy with people, I like to do a genogram, and in that genogram, that's at least 3 or 4 years back into your family history, and it looks at the relationships and how the relationships are structured. It looks like who was together, what was some of the tension between those relationships, and what you begin to see is that people continue the cycle of certain types of things in relationship like alcoholism, divorcing, um, you know, um, children out of wedlock. You see a pattern of that generation after generation. And, and
Mhm.
and one thing that's important is sometimes we need to spend a little time if we're going to get in a relationship. And a lot of people, I seen somebody yesterday saying, "Oh, would the Lord send me the man that I need and this and that?" And I said, sometimes that person may have already been sent to you, but what you did is you equated that person to other people that you've been with, and you have to
Right.
look at that person and who that
Ooh,
person comes from.
ooh, ooh. That's oh my gosh, what a word. What a word. And the fact is that we've manifested what we think, because see, a lot of people, to me, look at folks and they fall in lust first, and they're lusting behind what maybe they may have had with somebody else, and they're thinking that we
Mhm.
can recreate it and we're going to make it better than the last relationship that I had. But that clearly is not the case. And one of the things I want to make sure that we get to, one viewer asked this question: do you think we see these things coming but look past them?
What you listen? You they have another little thing on social media called the red flag, like a red flag. And but guess what? So often we already know the red flag. Listen, it's real hard to say that I can't believe I got in a relationship with this person and they're doing things that I don't like, when sometimes we get with people that was already with some other people already, and then we get upset they with us and they doing the same thing that they did with somebody else with us.
Mhm.
You can't think that you don't see the red flag. People show you exactly who they are in relationships. Only really good psychopaths are able to hide who they are
Mm.
long enough for you to never find out who they is until it's too late. But a lot of times, what we do is we let our emotions and our attraction emotions take over our good mindset. What's
Right.
in our gut? A gut feeling is, I know I shouldn't talk to this guy. And I'm sure you have talked to women before in your time, or even men have talked to. I've talked to men and women both who said, I knew when I seen him or her, I shouldn't have talked to him. I shouldn't have went up to him. I shouldn't have got involved with them. But they still went and did it because the attraction, and they was thinking about their self pleasures instead of their self peace.
Self pleasure versus self peace. And that old saying, the grass always looks greener on the other side.
Oh
And
yeah.
when you, instead of doing the work, or saying, sometimes in relationships, it has been my experience, you just have to stop. The person may be driving you nuts, but when you really add up the pros and the cons to this relationship, the pros still outweigh the cons. But we like make that mountain out of a molehill because the person isn't doing what I need to do. But we also have to remember
Right.
that we're in different cycles in our lives as well. And so that person may not be doing exactly what you want them to do, but you've not expressed that. And that comes back to the word that you're really big on, communication. If they have figured out what really needs to happen. So when we talk about those particular things, I think that that's important as well. So that's my thought.
You almost say you was saying something, and all I could think about the whole time that you were saying what you were saying was, if there is going to be a way to get involved with this person, oh, I just want to make it work. I just want to. But guess what? Sometimes we got to know what we want and what we don't want, and what
Mhm,
we would tolerate and what we will not tolerate, and go
mhm,
with that. It's very clear when we do a lot of other things. If we decide we're going to go purchase a car, and when I say I'm going to go purchase this car, that
right.
car, I know that I want the car to be this color. I want the car to have this many miles. I want the car to have this, that, and the other. And I don't settle for anything else. But it's strangely when we get ready to get into relationships and other things, we don't say this is what I want. We sometimes say, oh, you know what? I think and I believe because this is another human being, I can maybe change it or make them change, or I can change myself. And what eventually ends up happening, that doesn't happen. You end up with that lemon car that you knew you didn't want to buy in the first place.
Right. And I love, that's a great analogy, the lemon car versus the lemon woman or the lemon man that you end up with, because it is really true. Sometimes the devil that you know is better than the devil that you don't know, because people change. They go to different phases in life. And you see someone and it's like, oh wow, this person has grown, they're mature, they this, but what you don't know is that they nasty, they don't cook, they don't clean, there's a myriad of other things. But we overlook those things in the pursuit of I'm gonna have a perfect relationship. And I think you would agree with me, there is no such thing as a perfect relationship. Because if that were so, I don't think that the divorce rate would be as high as it is if
That's
there
the
were
problem. That's the problem. That's the problem. Your relationship is not supposed to be perfect. It's supposed to be work. It's not supposed to be something that you can say, I don't have to do anything for. It is not something where the other person should change themselves, should mold themselves to everything that you like and do everything the way you want. Relationships is having to.
All right, just a little technical difficulties, you guys. We're getting there.
Did you hear me? Are we there?
We missed that last piece.
Okay, so what I was saying is relationships, you have to sacrifice a piece of who you are.
Right.
And then sacrificing the piece, but the only way you can sacrifice pieces of who you are is you have to know who you are first. And this is what when we say, you hear people saying, oh, I'm going to get myself together. I want to find out who I am before I get in a relationship. Sometimes that's a good idea, but what is the actual action plans that you're making to do that, to develop that, to establish that? And is it for you, or is it to get in? Is it for you, or is it to get into a relationship? Because that's what's important. You have to be who you are and what you're about, and introduce who you are first to people. Not the salesman, not the face man, but who you are as the person.
Right. And that whole piece, I don't remember what line I heard this in a movie, but it's, you got to take all of me, the good, the bad, the indifferent. And I think that people respect you more when they know what they're getting into. Like look, if you say, look, I'm a slug when it comes to, on the weekends, I don't like to shower. I like to sit around and be funky and watch sports and at least that person knows, right? But what ends up happening is the woman like, oh, during the week, because he's booted and suited and going to a 9 to 5, oh, I can change that. And you were listening. The person said that I like to slouch around on the weekends. And that's the thing. And so the thing is, how can we work, or is there any compromise at all? Especially when you get kids, or if you're coming into a relationship with kids, because you just can't, well, some people do. They just say, hey, it's my time, it's me time, and it's on the weekend, and you do whatever with the kids, or however. But,
well, let me say something. There is compromise. And you know what? The sad part is that I have sat back and watched people be unwilling to compromise with somebody that might be good with them, are good for them, are good about them, but not, be unwilling to compromise, but are willing to bend over backwards for people that don't have no good interest for them. And that's a very interesting dynamic. And and it's almost like, it's like almost the old mindset that if you go, here is somebody saying, here's the goodness, here's everything great that you can have, and you walk right over the good water to go get in the mud. And you say, well, did you look what was there for you? But it comes into, sometimes we are also socially constructed to want things that we don't really want. I take myself, even in a reference to my own personal, because I have to take I don't just tell people these things. And a large majority of the people I work with, relationship wise, I do a lot of self disclosing, and I share a lot about, because I haven't been married. So people will say, well, you ain't been married. How you helping us with our relationship? But I have been in a lot of relationships. And being in those relationships also taught me how to first be about myself and know what I'm going to have to sacrifice to be in a relationship and what things that I think I can tolerate versus what I'm not going to be able to tolerate. And making sure a person that I get in a relationship understand who I am and what I'm going to be doing. Because that's a big factor that people sometimes like a person that they see, but they don't want to really be with that kind of person. And that's a problem.
Right, right. You bring up some excellent points, and the fact, like you said, self-disclosure. When you can deal with that, because to me, that also speaks to a different level of maturity. When you're able to self-disclose, this is how I am. This is what I do. This is how I operate. It's not to say that I'm not willing to change or that I'm not open to change. However, sometimes those signals are also missed because let's be real, a lot of times, you've got, the lower head working, instead of the upper head working.
Mhm.
And as a result, you kind of end up in this crazy situation that you say, and I love this phrase, how did I get here? How did we get here? Right? And you ignored all of those sensible things that were coming to you, and that you ignored all the signs. So that right there, I think, it really encapsulates a lot of exactly what you're saying. Ron, look, we're going to take just a really quick break, and I'm going to move on because here's the other thing I want us to get into about conflict. Is it about the surface issue of something, or deeper,
Mhm.
of something that was unsaid, unhealed, or
Mhm.
untreated? So you guys don't go anywhere. We're here with Dr. Ron. You asked for him. Look, Brother Man is in the airport because he wanted to do this and come back. So don't go anywhere. You got your questions. Hey, bring them on. We'll be right back. You're tuned in to You Didn't Get the Memo.
Maybe you can make retirement happen. After all, you made home ownership happen. Homeschooling yourself on loans, beefing up your credit score.
So I'm pre-approved.
You were like, yes! Sorry. Color coding listings, ticking boxes, and flushing every toilet in a 20-mile radius. Home sweet home. You aced house hunting. Now get the tips you need to get on track at aceyourretirement.org.
All right. If you guys are just tuning in to You Didn't Get the Memo, I have, back by popular demand, Dr. Ron C. Osborne-Williams, and he is taking your questions, and we're talking about relationships. In terms of unresolved issues. Before we went to break, one of the questions that I posed to him was, let's talk about conflicts. Let's move that needle. Is it about the surface issue of something deeper that was unsaid, unhealed, or untreated? Because, conflict, that's some real stuff. So what's
So
it you,
so
Dr.
so let's take conflict to something that everybody can understand so we'll be really clear about it. There's a conflict that we have in Israel with Jewish and Palestinians, right? And a lot of people don't understand the conflict. A conflict thinking that these two people dislike each other because of some religious factors. But if you're a historian, you know history, you know that that's not the case of why that occurred. The case is that there's a conflict about who owns the land that the two bodies of people live on, and why, and that's the conflict. So I want to, and so this goes into, when we look into relationships, those conflicts are just things that are building on, are something that triggers what is the real issue. And sometimes the real issue can be that I don't even want to be with this person no more. But I'm already I'm locked in. I'm locked in with family. I'm locked in with the community. I'm locked in with people looking at me and say, how would I look if I leave this relationship? If I leave this person? And now everybody's going to say, what kind of person were you? How would that operate? And so I would rather just continue to have conflicts and do things that a good colleague of mine, she gave me this word, and this is a powerful word.
Okay.
Said that we would rather continue to have emotional integrity.
Mm,
We would violate our emotional integrity. So instead of saying, "Hey, I'm gonna get out of this relationship. I'm gonna stay here and be and destroy my emotional integrity." And so that's when you think about that. What's going to happen when you're using that emotional? You are abusing your emotional integrity. You then feel some kind of way, and then you find yourself being triggered by everything that this person that you're
absolutely.
with doing everything. And
Yeah.
and got and it's so we talk about it in the and ideas of racism, the what are those I'm trying to think of microaggressions.
Microaggressions.
Yo, microaggressions happen in relationships every day.
Absolutely.
Just and so we know this very well, but it's a deeper reason for those microaggressions,
Right.
not just that you left the toilet seat up.
Yeah.
Because clearly, if I leave the toilet seat up, it takes you 2 seconds to go and put the toilet seat down.
Right.
If you're happy with me, and you love me, and you think that I everything I do is peachy cream, I could pee on the toilet seat and you won't say nothing. So
Right.
this is so
No, that's real. I mean that's real what you're talking about. And when you talk about how people violate their emotional integrity, they will stay in relationships for the sake of what? Everybody else, right? To make it look good, but you live in a lie. And
right.
and that becomes even worse because then you start to stay away from home. And like you said, there's always arguments about the littlest, tiniest things rather than just saying, look, my emotional state and stability is more important than what's happening with you. Something that I was looking at this interview with Oprah and Adele, and she said something. Oprah said, well, people are angry because you lost weight because they identified with you. And her comment was, it is not my responsibility
Exactly.
to,
Exactly. It's
to,
not.
to deal with or handle somebody else's emotional state because it was about her and she was focused on herself. And I was like, dang, that's good because she recognized that and she recognized her marriage when her friends were talking about how happy y'all look. It was a facade. And she said she realized I'm doing a disservice. I'm walking around and acting like everything is peachy cream, and I can't stand to look at this person that I'm married to, even though I have a child with him.
And that's dangerous. And let me tell you how
Yes,
dangerous that
yes.
becomes. Because it becomes a point where if we are in situations, it's like having a butterfly in a cage.
Mm-hmm,
Soon that butterfly will die one way or another.
mm-hmm.
And if we have to be mindful that we are made to be free, to be transparent in who we are,
Yes,
and be what we want to be. And listen, I would tell anybody anytime, if they love you, they'll set you free.
right.
And if you love yourself, you'll set yourself
You
free
set
first.
yourself free first, right? Absolutely, and it's amazing when we see that. So we have we have a comment from a viewer, and we also have a question. The comment from one viewer is that toilet seat issue is very important. If you care for your spouse and daughter or daughters, you put that damn seat down. So,
And I'm glad that you said it's a great point. It's a
right,
very great point that you make, because it's very hard, and I think that sometimes this comes with understanding and conversation and communication.
right.
Because when you ask your husband, right, he pulled the seat up so he wouldn't pee on the seat. Y'all didn't have that conversation because the seat was already down. He pulled it up so he wouldn't have to pee on the seat.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, in that conversation I've had with people before about this, is that the same energy that I take to pull it up, why is it that you can't just pull it down?
Mm-hmm.
Because what? So you say the seat should be, because if the seat is already down, you got to still do something to pull the big seat up before you can sit on the little seat.
Right.
And then remember, here's another thing, not an excuse, but the truth. When you go into a men's restroom, we use urinals. So the nature of going to the bathroom for many men are just going boom to the urinals. If you ever been in a men's bathroom in the commode, that thing full of pee.
Right.
It's urine all over the seat because everybody used to just going into the urinals, and so
Mhm.
I'm glad we're talking about the seat because the seat is a powerful trigger to know where your relationship is.
Mm,
Because in
mm,
many cases, when we saying we want to be with that person, we're willing to work on things.
mhm.
That's a little small thing that we call that could be the little ant that conquers the line. But this is a perfect example in a relationship where you get to see how your partner really feels about you, and
Right.
if they're willing to do this little thing like I I'm gonna put the seat down or I'm
Right.
gonna pull it up and I'm gonna do
Right.
that because I know that the person doesn't like it. Now the
Right.
problem is if the person does it, are you giving them praise for doing it? Are you telling them I appreciate that you
Right.
looked enough out for me to do that? And sometimes in a lot of things we don't do that because
Right.
that seems like it's expected and this is what we expect something and we expect you to do it without understanding that it was some work for you to have to do it.
Right. Right. Okay. Here's a question from the viewer. Why is it that you reach a point where you feel like you are giving more than you are receiving?
let me let me say in every one of those relationships is unique. There could be many reasons why you feel you giving more than what you're receiving. One of the big things that could occur that happens is that you're giving so much to a relationship that a person didn't ask you to give. So now you're feeling like you're giving, giving, giving. And what happens is when we give, sometimes we receive reciprocity. We believe that we should get something back for what we're giving. But that person didn't ask you to give those things. You're giving them things that they didn't ask for. Now, the question becomes is where we see a lot of conflict in relationships. And the person say, I gave you this, I gave this, I gave that, I gave this. And the person say, I didn't ask you for any of that. The one thing I did ask you for, you told me you couldn't give to me. And that's where you getting to see relationships really break down. I'm giving you this. I'm gonna give you give. I'm giving. I did this for him. I did this for her. I did this. And then the question I always ask is, what do they do for you? And you know what that person usually say? Nothing. So I say, why you keep giving if they ain't?
Right.
Where's that? Where you went? No one in the world would keep taking money to the tree and putting it in the tree if the tree wasn't giving you anything back.
Right.
So
Right.
so why are you doing? Why is that happening? Obviously, they got to be giving you something. It's something they're giving you
Yeah.
because most relationships are reciprocal. They're not just a give situation.
Hmm.
But you may not be getting what you want from them.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the problem. You
Yeah.
may not be
I
getting
did.
what you want.
Yeah, yeah. And that's a great segue into why do you say people keep having relationship failures, right? And
Hmm.
a lot of everything that you're saying can be encapsulated into this. But from your experience, when we talk about relationship failures, people move from one person to the other person to the other person, and sometimes the things that you're searching for, you got to ask yourself, are you being realistic with what it is that you're looking for?
Right.
Because
Right.
at the same time it's knowing who you are, and we get caught up in these relationships are either you're giving or the other person is taking, and then it becomes an expectation rather than um, you know the fact that appreciation, I guess, would be the word. So
Right.
expectation versus appreciation. But coming back to that question, what do you say about people who keep having these relationship failures, marriages, or long-term relationships?
What statistics have shown us is that a large majority of people who don't have successful relationships will tell you that the reason they're not having successful relationships is because of other people they've been in relationships with. No, not very often are people taking accountability that it is usually me who needs to work on myself before I get or be in relationship. And I need to maybe even do a full cleanse of myself from any ideas of relationships and maybe just tear the whole thing down and start over from scratch. But that's not what happened because we like to use our defense, our defense mechanisms. We like to, look at ourselves in the positive. So we'll say that I was with this person and they had this problem, and when I was with this person they had that problem. And then if you ask, and I've asked people many times, what parts did you play to you not having the relationship you have anymore? And it's very clear to me when I hear them say, well, I didn't do anything, I did everything perfect. I did this, I did all these things. And I say, so the person just, you was in a I have to ask, so you were in a relationship with a person, you were doing everything right, you were doing the whole relationship, and they didn't do anything right. And this is your seventh relationship, and in all 70 relationships is like that. Well, one thing I say to people is that, it can't be all seven people, because of the seven, five of them got married to somebody else and happily with their kids.
Right,
so
right.
Then you have to start questioning yourself.
What's the common denominator?
What's the common denominator? And what do you need to do to change that math?
Right.
Because you can change the math. But
Right.
that means that we have to look at ourselves, look in the mirror, and say, what is it that I'm doing to either attract these kind of people that I don't want to be with, or I am going to reach out to people that I really are not going to be able to have relationships with.
Right, right. And then that piece also is setting expectations in a relationship. I think it was great that this couple, this guy proposed to his girlfriend after 7 years on that CBS special with Adele. And the one thing that stuck out to me, she said, you are proposing to me for real, because I've been with you for so long. And I thought, wow. Now, the entire world is watching this, right? And even though they're happy and all of this, but 7 years. And again, communication, setting expectations.
There's so much to that statement. There's so much, because guess what? When this man got with you, right?
Right.
The question is, he got with you, and is this for real? Because we don't even have the expectations that it can be real, and because we think that it should work a certain way. Mm-hmm. This man might have didn't propose to you because he wasn't prepared to propose. And we're not talking about ready to settle down, still want to be a player. He wasn't proposed to be able to say, I will be able to take care of myself, and I will be able to take care of somebody else. Mm-hmm. Because that's the first step. A lot of times we bypass that. I'd say all the time in my program, we bypass that. We are taking care of not even ourselves. We haven't even established ourselves. And now we got a third person in the mix that the both of us supposed to be trying to take care of. And we're not able to take care of them because we can't really even take care of ourselves. We don't even know how to take care of each other. And so the third person, usually the child, is suffering because of all that. And because it takes time. Listen, everybody keep making it seem like that once a young man or woman reach puberty, they are a man and a woman. They're not. There is a rite of passage that we need to go through to become the kind of man or the kind of woman we need to become to be able to be suitable to even be engaged in a relationship with another person. Well, first a relationship with ourselves, then a relationship with another person, romantically or professionally or personally. Right. When we get that point and we're able to know what it means, then we are moving to the stage of saying, I know how to sacrifice enough, and I sacrifice for my partner, and the partner sacrifice enough for us to bring another soul into this world for us to sacrifice together.
Right, right.
But that's not happening. And then people are making it like, if people tell you good and you great and you got everything going on and you this and that, people think they stuff don't stink. But that's not always the truth. Right. Just because you have everything on the front end don't mean you have anything behind the house.
Right. And the rites of passage that you speak of, we're talking about maturity. Just because you can enter into a sexual relationship and you start getting into a relationship of, well, let's live together. It could be a matter of convenience as well until that person could get to a point where they're saying, you know what, hey, this is about convenience for me,
Uh-huh.
allowing me to save some money. I mean, again, I'm not talking, but the person on the other end, they're saying, oh, we're going to move together. So that means, first come love, now marriage, and now baby carriage. And all he's thinking about is, you know what? Hey, first comes solidifying my finances, right? I like you a lot and I can grow to love you. But there are so many other levels and dynamics when we're
Listen,
dealing with that.
take the dynamics that one of the things I've seen in my generation,
Hmm.
in my generation is a generation of people who have had an opportunity to have more than their parents. And I think that goes in most generations most of the time. But in my generation, we've had so much more than our parents that now we're suffering from this idea that we have to take care of two generations. We have to take care of our parents in some instances because they haven't made and their sacrifice was so much that they didn't have the savvy to save for certain things to prepare for their future. So we're now being as the success stories. We now have to make sure we take care of them. And now if we're already having children and the next generation, we're having to take care of them. So it's very important that people remember that sometimes that becomes double fold on many men. But I won't say it's exclusively men because I know many women I know who are taking care of their parents. And now if they have kids, they're taking care of their kids and the kids because they are the generation that had who made it. It's like they was the one who pulled themselves up by the bootstraps, was able to make something of themselves and their community, and now they have to give back, and they're giving back on two ends. But
Right.
and that's what becomes part of the problem because if someone is giving so much, here you are, they're equal.
Mm,
They might not can give you all the stuff you need because they still trying to give on other places.
yeah, but look, I'm going to say let's stick a pin right there in that one because on the other side of that coin, you're giving so much, but a lot of it is it's because um, it makes that person feel good that I'm able to give and I'm able to do, and therefore neglect the part of their relationship, right?
I love it.
So, because you're still giving to healthy adult children who say, I don't like this job, so I'm not going to go to work. But you're paying their rent for them, you're paying their car note for them.
Right.
You got other siblings, and you can't focus on your relationship because what you really need to build is because okay, nobody take care of mama or daddy like me, right? And as a result, that other party is sitting over there just, I mean, they're simmering. They are simmering. They're stewing because the thing is, I'm giving you all of this, and in their opinion, it's become an expectation, and from where I'm standing, you're taking advantage.
Right.
So people have to be really, really clear on that particular piece. But Ron, we're going to take another quick break, and when we get back, because I have all these things that people want to know, I want to talk about how to move from unresolved issues if you can, and talk about people in relationships that are in competition with other couples. People who feel
Mm.
like you got the biggest house, the biggest car, the biggest bank account. And I always say you one paycheck away from poverty. But we'll deal with that when we come back. So, guys, don't go away. Thank you. I see your questions and your comments. Thank you. And we'll deal with this. We'll be right back. You're tuned in to You Didn't Get the Memo with my dope guest, Dr. Ron C. Osborne-Williams. We'll be right back.
Let's get back to talking smack with the side of mac and cheese.
Before we can safely come together, we need the facts on COVID-19 vaccines.
To get the facts, visit getvaccineanswers.org so you can make an informed decision when vaccines are available to you.
All right, we're back with Dr. Ron Ron C. Osborne-Williams, and we're just talking about, oh my goodness, relationships, things that are unresolved. And before we went to break, one of the questions that I posed to Dr. Ron was, how do you move from unresolved relationships? Or can a person move from unresolved relations or issues in relationships. And that's whether it's family or whether it's, male, female, so what are
But
your
I've seen and I believe that people can clearly um, resolve unresolved issues in relationships, but it takes to really be able to communicate and forgive. And I say this all the time. What we don't do, we do a lot of criticizing. When we have an issue and an issue with someone, we don't confront the issue, because confronting the issue means that we have to then say something that how this really affects us and what and how we're involved in it. We just criticize the issue, and so that criticism of the issue continues this issue on and on. And so when we look at, say, if I want to resolve an issue with a parent, if I want to resolve this issue with my partner or a sibling, one of the key ways that you can do that is to be able to go and communicate, go and be very clear, go and confront what that issue is with them. Say use I statements most of the time, feeling statements, and use them for yourself, and ask them, listen, a couple years ago, a couple years. I'm gonna use a perfect example. There would I know two sisters, and one felt like the other one kind of called them out on on how who the kind of person they was, and that sister kept that, and she never really responded to it, and then it began to affect how they were interacting. Instead of saying at the moment that you said that,
Mhm,
why do you say that I'm not a good parent? What makes you say that I'm not a good parent?
mhm.
And then when you say that, but they had to wait to come to me for me to ask that question. And the sister was able to say to the other sister, I don't mean that you're not a good parent. I'm just saying that you're not as strong as I am.
Mhm.
And see how if you were able to do that within them, this wouldn't have been a lingering thing that they had to automatically come to a situation to speak to me about. It was something that they could have confronted. But a lot of times we're talking about these people had enough sense to go and get a mediator, someone to intervene. Most people are not doing that because they believe that they're righteous in what they're saying and
Right,
doing.
right.
So they keep going and keep going, and it keeps building and building and building until the house burns down.
Yeah, festering is what we call it. You just allow it to fester. So, and one quick note on that. One of the things that I find, even for myself, is difficult at times. Certain people may say certain things, and because you love and respect them, or look up to them, a lot of times it's hard to just say, "You really hurt my feelings.
Mm,
You said this to me." And then what happens is that person turns it around. And I always say, it's not your story to tell. It's not your story to go and tell somebody else,
exactly.
which causes it. And then it comes back and it's morphed into this volcano. And it's kind of hard to, you can't put all the stuff that's spewed out back in. And that makes it really difficult rather than the person who got that and received it from a third party saying, well, you know what? They could have been having an off day. They didn't mean it like that. We're so quick to go to from 0 to 100 because somebody said something, and it makes it kind of hard, and that sometimes makes it a little more, in my opinion, a little more difficult to resolve and deal with, because it's almost like, what's the point, and it kind of keeps going over and over and over again. But I say to anybody, listen, it ain't your story to go tell somebody else anything. You've got to let that person come to that, in my opinion, because it's like family. I don't need one of my siblings to go tell my brother or my sister that I said this. If the thing is, it could have been something so, innocuous in passing, but it's now blown out of proportion, and that becomes a big issue. That becomes,
And it becomes, as you described, the situation you described, it becomes a situation where there are other people talking about this situation that
yes,
really we should have talked about. Like, you have an issue with something.
yes,
Why is it that you didn't confront me first? You should have confronted me and said, hey, I don't like that you did this, or you said this, or the way you handled me in this situation. And then I could have responded and said, well, that's how I felt that it was going down. And listen, we can agree to disagree in the end,
Right.
but guess what? All the junk will be on the table. There's nothing
Yeah.
under the table that
Yeah.
comes back later.
Yeah. See, that's the thing. That's the thing. Okay, so let's move on real quickly. This time flies by. So rapid. I'm going to just do rapid fire. So, you know, things that look like love but soon fall apart.
Things that look like love.
Mhm.
Well, listen, because who are you getting your definition of what love look like? If it's the reality TV shows, if it's on Instagram and Facebook or any kind of fairy tale TV movies, that's not real. If you want to go look at real love, go speak to your grandparent or your great grands and ask what that love was, because that love was more than just about them. It was about you being here today.
Yeah.
And that's an important thing for us to quit thinking about love being so much about you, because it's not. Love is not exclusively about I'm love and I feel love, I'm in love. It's
Mhm.
about love of my generations and my generation's legacy. So when you're thinking about your legacy, you sometimes say, maybe this ain't such a big deal.
Mhm.
You know, this ain't a deal. So if you say you got a list of deal breakers, if
Yeah.
you got a list of 25 deal breakers, it's real hard to get in a relationship with anybody. I mean, can you narrow it down to maybe 4? Because somebody always going to do something that you don't like.
Right. And a lot of times they don't even know that you don't like it, or you may not even know that you like it until it actually happens to you.
Right,
So
right.
that becomes, a whole nother discussion. Okay, so let's talk about keeping up with the Joneses. I call it keeping up with the hubcaps, people that are in competition with other people. The relationship on the surface, it looks like it's all great, but the reality of it is it ain't happening. It's not working.
And how do we know that? Because there's people who already invaded your relationship and telling everybody in the street that it ain't that good.
Right.
Because it's not. A strong relationship, a strong good relationship would never let anybody interfere in it, even if it's not good. Just on the premise that it's important to protect each other in that relationship. No one would know that I have lost all the love for my partner. They wouldn't know that until
Right.
one day we might get a divorce and they'll be like, well, y'all got a divorce. We've never assumed that. Well,
Right.
because it's not for you. Listen, my relationship is not for y'all.
Here you
It's
go.
for me.
Come on. Yeah. And I can say, that happened personally to me. A couple had no idea. And when we found out they'd been divorced for how long, had no idea, no clue. And guess what? My thing was it wasn't my story to even, and in my place to ask, well, what happened? You divorced, you said you were divorced, in the story. Nothing else.
Right.
Leave it. So that's the thing. Now, one of the viewers had asked a question, and this goes back to something that we talked about. It's still that whole 50-50 thing. And I can recall you talking about this. Should a relationship or marriage be a 50-50? So again, let's put that one to rest.
Listen,
Your thought.
listen. It needs to be 200 and 200. For better or for worse, sick or poor, to death do us part. Now, if that's what the one that you're taking, because guess what? If it's only if you're looking at this idea that somebody is not, if both people not bringing the same amount to each other in a relationship, what happens if something goes wrong? What if something fails in the relationship? What if one person gets ill? What if one person gets sick? What if one person loses their legs or something happens? What happens then? They're not able to still bring that 50-50. And guess what? Y'all won't be able to do anything. Your life is gone. So we have to bring, and again, are we talking about again? Are you talking about finances? Because once you get into a relationship, there is no 50-50.
Right. Right.
If you're working as a team, you don't never hear no business or no board members on the board who have stock in a company saying, well, how much stock you got? How much stock we got? No, everybody has equal shares. In places that I know, they have equal shares, and then we like to keep it equal shares so everybody is on the same page and equal in that relationship.
Right. Right. All right. So I just remember that being a big topic of discussion the last time we were on. All right. So should couples keep separate bank accounts, yours, mine, and ours.
That sounds like that's an excellent idea, and I say that's an excellent idea um, to build more generational wealth. Whereas that you can have an account where both people bring that money into those accounts, and then you have accounts outside. But I would say that the majority, the largest part of your income goes into the family account, and that family account covers all family things.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is because it helps in many ways of this idea of keeping your family structured and
Right.
sustained, even though the partner want to do some other things. You don't take your rent money or your mortgage money or your car note money to go take a chance.
Right.
You go say, I'm gonna try some money on the stock market, or I'm gonna
Mhm.
go try to start a business. No, you take your own little private money that you keep for yourself,
Yes.
that you use to buy your boo the nice gifts at Christmas time, or they buy each other and take each other. That's one of the best ways. That's just my opinion of one of the best ways, because you have your money sustained, and it doesn't matter how much money each person makes, because
Mhm.
each person is going to take the higher part of their money and
Right.
contribute it to the bigger pot for the overall household.
Yeah, I agree. I
If
agree.
you try, that's if you're trying to have a sustainable long-term relationship with
Right.
somebody. If you're thinking about that, this person ain't real for me. I need to do a what's those things? A turn. What's the thing that the people fill out? It's right on the tip of my tongue.
What?
Um, Before they get married, prenup. If I need to do a prenup to get married, but guess what? That's people. Listen, that's questionable to me, because most of the people I know are working class people, and they working to try to work together to get to a level to be able to have something.
Yeah.
Very few people out here who come into relationships with nothing, and other person saying, hey, I want to get a prenup to figure out what you're gonna get or what you're not gonna get. To
Right.
me, that's sometimes an idea is coming to a relationship with a negative in mind.
Yeah. Yeah. That is true. All right. Thoughts on long distance relationships?
Well, as a long-term contributor to long distance relationships, um, let me say something. Long-term relationships, I will, I have a plus and a minus.
All
Long-term
right.
relationships only work for people who are secure enough to be away from their partners, and
Mm,
and understand, are not affected by the idea of loneliness,
mm, mm,
because
mm.
it will not work if you're in a relationship with somebody who needs physical touch from you on a daily basis, need to hear words of affection. It won't work, because eventually what people need, they're gonna get somewhere else if you're not dedicated. If you're not there to give it to them. And that's only if you believe in having this
Um,
committed monogamous relationship. Some
right.
people don't believe in that, so it's comfortable to have that long-term relationship. But I will say the plus for long-term relationships is you really have to, you really get to learn the person, who the person is, because most of the time you spend on the phone with them, you're talking about yourself and things in reference to who you really are and who they really are. But and that is probably also the bad part, because you know so much about the person, but when you get in the same place with them, you know, they might keep the house a mess. They might just throw all this stuff on the ground, and that may not be something that's hard to try to deal with in a relationship.
Right. Right. Absolutely. So, couple of things. What are some suggestions how people should argue, if there is such a thing? Because a lot of times we started out with how people allow things that they bubbled up and bubbled over, and then the issue is something that's even deeper, that's not been said, or it's not been dealt with. So is there a way that people should argue?
I think definitely, if you want to have an argument, first you need to know what you're going to be arguing about. I mean, I would even say set it up to say, hey, one of those times that if you stay with the partner, or if you don't stay with your partner and you don't stay in the same house, um, pick up that ideal time so you won't have any distractions or anything to affect it. And I would say arguing sometimes doesn't have to be arguing. It can be discussing. It can be confronting. It could be an opportunity to come talk about what the issue is, um, be very clear about what the issue is and deal with just that issue, not something that happened in the past, something that happened 2 weeks ago. If you find yourself beginning to get, mad and angry, stop, take a break, because you're not going to get anywhere if you're not actually listening to each other. Be able to listen, be able to at many points of listening to the partner of what they're saying. And sometimes the biggest part of an argument is being able to apologize. Not so much apologize for what you did, but apologize for how what you did made the person feel. Because sometimes it's not what we did that hurt them. That's how they feel, and it's disingenuous to apologize for something that that you're probably gonna do again, because you haven't learned how to not do it. You can at least say, "I will try." In that conversation, what happens at the end is, "I didn't know that hurt you, and I'm gonna try to work on that, and I'm gonna try not to do it because I see how it affects you.
Right.
I'm gonna try to do it because let me say this again, because I see how it affects you. Not to say I'm gonna just change because you want me to change. I'm going to try because I see how it affects you. And if something is affecting you, it affects our relationship."
Yeah. One of the comments from the viewer said, "Don't let your arguments get personal. Discuss the issue and not the person."
Very much so, because when you start discussing the person,
Right.
it becomes, everybody's going to have their immediate defense mechanisms that go up.
Right.
Immediately, once you say, "Well, what you did," and I mean, and it's not just in romantic relationship, that's in working relationship, all kinds of. I mean, I got sensitive like that on yesterday when a colleague was telling me something, and I had to go and talk to. And here, let me say this: before you go and get into this argument with somebody, speak to if you have platonic friends of the other sex, go and speak to them and tell them what your issue is. And make sure you ain't tripping before you go in and address your partner. Don't go and talk to the people that's always got your back and agree with whatever you say, the yes people. Go and speak to somebody and say, "Listen, I want to ask you a question. I want to know if I'm tripping on this," and give them the full details of what you feel it is. And if they're a good friend, they'll tell you, "You tripping. It really ain't that important," and leave it alone. Or they may tell you, I don't think that's appropriate. I think what he's doing to you and how he's doing whatever he's doing to you is wrong. So maybe you need to move from that.
Right. Ron, we're going to take this last quick break.
Okay.
But what I'm going to ask you to do is to think about one, when people argue, what's the word? Forgiveness. Does it mean that what was done is okay? And what is it that you want people to take away from today's show? So we'll be right back. You guys don't go anywhere. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching the You Didn't Get the Memo show with your inspirational host, Gloria Bailey Ray. It's your contributions that make this happen. To become a sponsor, send an email to youdidn'tgetthememo@gmail. That's the letter U, didn't get the memo. If you're not in a space to be a sponsor, but you like what you hear, we simply ask that you support what you like by making a contribution to the show. There are 3 ways to make an online donation. Visit paypal.me/Gloria Bailey Ray or Cash App or Venmo, Gloria Bailey Ray. Give what you can. Your support is appreciated.
All right, guys, we have had yet another great discussion with Dr. Ron, and he is actually doing this from the airport. So talk about dedication, and I am just honored that you took the time to speak with us. Before we went to break, one of the things that I asked you is to talk about forgiveness. Does it mean that what was done is okay? And you kind of alluded to that a little bit.
Right.
What is it that you want people to take away from today's
So
show?
forgiveness
For the holidays.
Right. So and I think that is a perfect opportunity for the holidays to work on forgiveness, to look at forgiveness. Forgiveness doesn't mean that you forget what happened. Let me say that. But what I've told somebody recently is there was a comment made that if your partner cheats on you, could you ever forgive them? And my comment to that was, I don't have to forgive them. They need to forgive themselves. And I meant when I said be able to forgive themselves, why should I take on what they did and have to be dealing with it? I didn't do anything.
Right.
So let them forgive themselves, not me having to forgive them, because I was good. I did my part. I did what I was supposed. What you did and how you did it doesn't change me in any way, other than that you think that you did something to me. But guess what? If our relationship is pure and I am good for you the way I am, you will suffer for what you did. I
Yeah.
don't have to do anything for you. I don't have to ask you. I don't gotta beg your forgiveness. I gotta anything, because if I was good for you,
Mm.
in the end, you will suffer. I won't be suffering. And I say that all the time. That why are you asking somebody, to be able to, hey, give them forgiveness. I need forgiveness. That person got to forgive me. Why? They don't listen. They don't need to get your forgiveness if you're good. That's
Mm.
They just lost one. That's
Yeah.
what it is. And that's if you're gonna leave them. Sometimes people don't leave them. They just remember that. Listen, this ain't the kind of we're not having the same kind of relationship anymore. And I just need to let you know that I don't have to. You don't. I'm not asking you. I'm not asking, and I don't need you to ask me for forgiveness or what have you. I need you to remember that I remember what you did, and that may affect our long term what happens in this relationship from this point. And because I just think you don't want to have to take on that pain. You don't want to be the one dealing with the forgiveness. Why you gotta wait for them to ask for forgiveness from you when you didn't do anything?
Yeah. So, what do you want people to take away from today's show, Dr. Ron?
Well, one of the things I go all the way back to the beginning, and we're talking about relationships. And
Mhm.
when we think about relationships, one of the big things that we want to do is be looking at who we are first.
Right.
Our self-esteem, our self-concept, our self-perception, our self-worth, all of those things build into what we bring to relationships.
Right.
And if we don't have any, if it's not good, if it's not high, and if it's low, this is what we're getting back from relationships. So before we go to relationships or try to evaluate if we want to be in relationships, we need to really evaluate ourselves. And also in some sense, you want to be able to be in a relationship with someone that you can be talking about this before anything else. Like, imagine having a relationship where you can have an honest, transparent conversation with somebody where they don't, they don't jump the gun, they don't get jealous, they don't accuse you of things. But what they do is ask you a question and give you the opportunity to answer.
Right.
And
Right.
that's when you're working with someone who really is serious about trying to have a relationship with you, because what they're willing to do is trying to understand you. They're trying to get to know you, not telling you what you did this and this is not what I like. And when people are doing that, they don't want you. They want to build a bear. And so if they want to build a bear, they need to make one, because you are not that person.
Right.
You are your individual person. You need to at all times let people know who you are and what they're getting. And if it doesn't fit you, guess what? There's billions and billions and trillions of people in the world. There's somebody out there who will connect with you. If
Right.
you're trying to connect with them in that, let me say, if you're trying to connect with them in that way.
Yeah.
Because a lot of time we out there looking for glitter and gold, and we get a lot of boo-boo.
Right. Right. Dr. Ron, also, one other thing, you've got something coming up here shortly.
Yes.
Let me.
Check 1 2. Am I introducing it? Oh, so this is our Back to Us retreat, the 2299. If you're interested, please check it out. It is an opportunity to go with us and other people who are interested in working on our relationships with ourselves and with people. Um, in Costa Rica, we go there for 5 days, 5 nights, 4 nights, 5 days, 4 nights, and we have about 4 workshops working on relationships, our sexuality, our identity, and then we just have a lot of fun, really building a community of people who want to be better in their relationships and better in relationships overall. So it's not exclusively about romantic relationships. It's also about individual relationships that we have as the individual person. So welcome anybody to come and join us. If you need to look, you can definitely see the flyer.
Yeah, and I'll post it up on my social media. So you guys, you'll be able to follow up. And I've heard some really good things from these workshops. So thank you so much for that. So, Ron, I want to thank you. I know that you got to run, you got to catch a flight, but thank you so much for being here with us this evening. We wish you safe travels wherever you are headed off to. And again, thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for being on here. I really
Hey,
appreciate
I love to be on. What I'm going to do is, and I'm just saying, me and a partner of mine are starting a show. And I'm going to invite you on to our show as soon as I get the opportunity
I love
to.
that.
Just so your viewers can come over to our show. We're going to start a show called The Color Cafe.
Hmm.
I know
I love it. Your accent's
I know
pretty
I
good.
know you like the name. And
So,
when you see what we're there to talk about, is powerful. And
yes,
I definitely, I'm definitely one of the first people I want to get to come sit with us in the Color Cafe and really talk about what you're doing and the work you've been doing for the years you've been doing, because I think it's important for people to know about us grassroots people
yeah.
who do things that we really don't get the flowers that we deserve to get, because sometimes people are interested in foolishness, not
Yeah.
realness.
Oh yeah, and I'm all about the realness piece of it. So
Yes, ma'am.
thank you. All right. So you don't go anywhere. I'll remove you, and if you have to go, I understand that. I have a couple of things that I want to say to my viewers. So to all of you guys, thank you so much for tuning in to You Didn't Get the Memo show today. Look, if you got questions, be sure and post them up. I've been putting up Dr. Run's Facebook info. So please let me know or send me an email. But again, I want to thank Dr. Ron for being on the show today. A gentle reminder is to also, hey, for those of you that can support this show, support our efforts by inquiring about our sponsorship packages and opportunities, or if nothing else, as you heard, if you just want to make a donation, feel free to do that. If you're not in the space to become a sponsor, be sure and follow me on all my social media platforms. And I started out by saying we air live on Facebook, on YouTube, on LinkedIn every Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. If you're in need of some midweek inspiration, I also host a podcast on Spreaker.com called Real Talk with Lady Jude. It's from 6 to 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Quick shout out to all of my viewers, both international, yes, I said international, and national. Thank you guys so much for your support. Thank you for tuning in. A huge thank you to all of you who've been here today. And I just ask that you share the word, let other people know. As I always say, if you didn't take anything away from today's show, then it's you who actually didn't get the memo. Until this time next week, I want you guys to have a great week. Also, stay safe. Always pay it forward. And listen, remember this, the quality of your life is determined by the decisions that you make. I'm your host, Gloria Bailey Ray. I bid you well, peace, and blessings.